Hello everyone, I'm Sunshine, and welcome to Delusion. Sometimes I wonder, what does the worst moment in life feel like? Maybe it's an ordinary afternoon when you suddenly realize the carefully constructed world you've built has completely collapsed. You've lost the person you love most, you've lost your stable job, and you've even lost control over yourself. You stand in the middle of the ruins, and everyone around you is cautiously watching you, as if you're a fragile object. At that moment, would you still believe you have a future? Would you still believe in love? Today, I want to talk to you about a film that tells the story of two people standing in the rubble of their lives. One is a former teacher who has just come out of a mental institution, and the other is a young widow who has fallen into depression after losing her husband. Both of them are seen as troublemakers by others, unwelcome guests in social situations. But these two people, who seem the least likely to find common ground, somehow discover the reason to keep going in each other. The movie is the 2012 film Silver Linings Playbook. Silver Linings Playbook is a romantic comedy directed by David O. Russell. Russell is a renowned maverick filmmaker in Hollywood, known for capturing the raw textures of life through handheld cinematography and improvisational performances. His previous work, The Fighter, won 2 Oscars for Best Supporting Actor and Best Supporting Actress. This film continues his focus on small, everyday people and family relationships. The leads, Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence, deliver some of the finest performances of their careers. Cooper plays Pat, a former teacher with bipolar disorder who has just been discharged from a mental institution and is eager to win back his estranged wife. Lawrence plays Tiffany, a young widow struggling with depression and self-destructive behavior after the death of her husband. Amazingly, Lawrence was only 21 years old during filming, yet she delivers a performance with stunning maturity, portraying Tiffany's trauma and resilience with incredible depth. Her performance earned her an Academy Award for Best Actress, making her the second youngest Best Actress winner in history. The film received 8 nominations at the 2013 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, and Best Actress, with Lawrence ultimately taking home the award. The story takes place in a humble neighborhood on the outskirts of Philadelphia. Pat Solitano was once a high school history teacher with a respectable job and what seemed to be a happy marriage. Then one day, he came home from work to find his wife Nikki in the bathroom with another man, while their wedding song played in the background. In that moment, Pat's world collapsed. He lost control and brutally attacked the man, almost killing him. The court diagnosed him with bipolar disorder, commonly referred to as manic depression, and sent him to a mental institution for 8 months of treatment. Upon being discharged and returning to his parents' home, Pat becomes fixated on winning Nikki back. He wakes up at 4 a.m. every day to go running, obsessively reads books, and tries to reinvent himself into someone Nikki would love. But reality is harsh. Nikki has filed a restraining order against him, barring him from contacting her. His parents tread cautiously around him, fearful of triggering another episode. Pat lives under the tense scrutiny of everyone around him, like a ticking time bomb. Then Tiffany enters his life. Tiffany is the sister-in-law of Pat's friend. Her husband died in a car accident a year ago, and ever since, her life has spiraled out of control. She was fired from her job for having relationships with nearly all of her male colleagues, something she claims helped her cope with grief, though others see her as nothing more than a reckless and unhinged woman. Their encounter was destined to be tumultuous. They first meet at a dinner party, where everyone tries to avoid sensitive topics. Tiffany, however, bluntly asks Pat about the medications he's taking and begins listing the various antidepressants she has tried herself. This unabashed honesty both shocks and fascinates Pat. Tiffany proposes a deal to Pat. She'll deliver his letters to Nikki, who he's legally barred from contacting, if he agrees to be her partner in a dance competition. Despite his hesitation, Pat agrees, desperate to reconnect with Nikki. And so begins their daily dance rehearsals. In a dingy studio, they sweat together and slowly let their guards down. Tiffany reveals to Pat that, on the night of her husband's accident, they had argued because she refused his desire to have children. She confesses that she lives in her own personal hell, haunted by the regret of that decision. Pat, in turn, admits that he had known for a long time that something was wrong in his marriage but chose to ignore it, until that fateful afternoon of betrayal and violence. The date of the competition draws closer, and Pat is thrilled to discover that Nikki will be there to watch. This is his long-awaited chance to prove to her that he's changed. But on the night before the competition, he receives a letter from Nikki, supposedly written in response to one of his letters sent through Tiffany. What he doesn't know is that this response was actually written by Tiffany. On the day of the dance competition, Pat's father, known as Old Pat, makes an outrageous gamble. He bets everything he owns on the result of a football game combined with the outcome of Pat's dance performance. It's a crazy risk, but it's also the profound trust and support of a father for his son. On stage, Pat and Tiffany deliver a dance routine that is far from flawless but brimming with earnestness. While Nikki sits in the audience, Pat finds his gaze irresistibly drawn to Tiffany. In that moment, he realizes that what he's been chasing is a broken illusion. The person who truly understands, accepts, and stays with him through the darkness has been by his side all along. What moved me most about this film is its portrayal of mental illness. In most movies, mental illness is either romanticized as the trademark of a genius or demonized as a source of danger. But Silver Linings Playbook takes a third path. It shows that mental illness is neither poetic nor terrifying. It's simply part of life, messy, painful, and real, but not the end of everything. We see Pat living with bipolar disorder. The film doesn't sugarcoat his condition. He wakes his parents up in the middle of the night to discuss the ending of a Hemingway novel, and he violently smashes up the living room when triggered by their wedding song. Russell uses shaky handheld cameras to follow Pat, immersing viewers in his inner turmoil. When Pat's emotions spiral out of control, the camera shakes, the music and sound become jarring and disruptive, putting the audience directly inside his fragmented world. But what's more important is how the film shows Pat's attempts to fight back. He runs every day, takes his medication on schedule, and tries to manage his emotions. He fails, stumbles, and embarrasses himself in front of others, but he never gives up. This is what real recovery looks like, not the miraculous cures of Hollywood dreams, but daily struggles and small steps forward. Tiffany is the same. Her depression and destructive behavior are not romanticized. The film neither ignores nor moralizes her relationships with male colleagues, presenting them simply as her attempt to cope with her grief, messy and unhealthy, but the only way she knew at the time. Lawrence's performance is astonishingly layered. She brings together Tiffany's vulnerability and strength, despair and hope, crafting a character who is flawed yet deeply human. Behind her sharp words and defiant attitude, we glimpse the wounded and fragile soul within. These two broken people find each other, yet the film does not suggest they save each other. Instead, they witness each other's struggles. Pat sees Tiffany's pain, and Tiffany sees Pat's efforts. They don't have to pretend to be strong or hide their scars. In front of each other, they can be completely themselves, including all the messiness, chaos, and imperfections. This mutual acceptance is the true healing. One scene in particular made a deep impression on me. In Tiffany's dance studio, Pat has a breakdown, questioning why Nikki cheated on him and why God allows such things to happen. Tiffany looks at him and says calmly, "Maybe there's no why. Bad things just happen." At that moment, there's no comfort or motivational speech, just a profound sense of connection. Tiffany herself understands this too. She wonders why her husband went out that night and why she made her choice. It reminds me of a psychological concept called meaning-making. When trauma occurs, we often try to find an explanation or a reason to fit it into the narrative of our lives. But sometimes, the hardest truth to accept is that some things simply have no meaning. A car accident is just an accident. Infidelity is just infidelity. They're not punishments or divine plans, just random events in life. Accepting this lack of meaning and the inherent chaos of life can allow us to let go and move forward. Another core theme of the film is obsession and letting go. For most of the movie, Pat is fixated on winning Nikki back. He reads her favorite books and changes everything about himself to become her ideal husband. Yet ironically, this very fixation proves that he hasn't truly moved on. He isn't in love with the real Nikki but with an idealized memory of her, a symbol of his once perfect life. The director cleverly uses visual storytelling to highlight this point. In Pat's flashbacks, his wedding to Nikki is bathed in a soft golden light, excessively beautiful and unreal. But when Nikki appears at the dance competition, the camera captures her coldly and objectively. She's just an ordinary woman, without any magical aura. This contrast illustrates the gap between idealized memory and reality. True growth often starts with letting go, not giving up hope, but releasing obsessions. Letting go of what's past, of perfect illusions, and of the reliance on one person or relationship for all hope. When Pat finally understands this, he sees Tiffany has been there all along, not as a replacement for Nikki, but as an independent, authentic soul, broken yet trying to heal. This makes me think about how often we spend so much time and energy chasing after something that's already gone. A relationship that ended, a job we lost, a dream we can't achieve. We tell ourselves it's persistence or perseverance, but it may actually be an escape, a way to avoid facing new possibilities and accepting life's uncertainties. Letting go isn't defeat, it's acknowledging that some things are truly over, and that's okay because new stories await. One particularly touching aspect of the film is how it portrays family relationships. Old Pat himself struggles with OCD and gambling issues, channeling all his emotions into Philadelphia Eagles football games, the one thing he believes he can control, or at least seems to control. Father and son are quite alike, both grappling with life's unpredictability in their own ways. There's a memorable father-son conversation in the film where old Pat confesses that his temper and impulsivity in his youth made him miss many opportunities. He looks at his son with a mix of guilt and worry, knowing Pat inherited these traits. Yet despite this, he tries his best to support his son. On the night of the dance competition, old Pat is more nervous than his son, putting all his finances at risk, not as a rational decision but as a gesture of ultimate belief in his child. This flawed and imperfect love reflects the most genuine family bonds. Pat's mother, always mediating between the stubborn father and son, understands their issues but chooses to stay, to support, and to forgive. This family isn't the model of perfect healing. They argue, they struggle, yet they stick together, and that's enough. In the film's closing moments, Pat and Tiffany score just 5 points at the dance competition, but this score, combined with the Eagles' win, allows old Pat to win his bet. It's an almost fairy tale coincidence, but the director's focus isn't on the coincidence itself, it's on the family's reaction. They cheer, embrace, and release their anxiety in that moment. Their problems aren't solved. Pat's condition won't be cured by a dance contest, and Tiffany's pain won't vanish with a budding romance. But in that instant, they glimpse hope and see that life can get better. And that's enough to keep them moving forward. This is what the title Silver Linings represents. It doesn't mean the clouds will disappear, but that even amidst the clouds, you can find that small sliver of light, a realistic hope that acknowledges life's imperfections yet chooses to believe in a better tomorrow. There are a few lines from the movie that are especially worth reflecting on. Pat repeatedly says Excelsior, a Latin term meaning ever upward or higher and better. This becomes his personal motto, symbolizing his resolve to continuously improve and reshape himself. Every time life hits him hard, he uses this word to inspire himself. The word appears throughout the film, both as his weapon and his obsession. Another powerful line comes from Tiffany. There will always be a part of me that is sloppy and dirty. She isn't belittling herself when she says this, she's being honest. She's telling Pat and herself that she accepts she's not perfect, that she has chaotic and messy aspects to her life, but those are still parts of her. This kind of self-acceptance is the truest form of courage. In a society that demands everyone to show their most polished selves, admitting your flaws and vulnerabilities requires immense bravery. And finally, Pat says near the end of the film, I opened up to you and you judged me. This line captures one of the most common pains in human relationships. Often, we hesitate to reveal our true selves because we fear judgment. Real intimacy should be a safe space where you can drop all pretenses, show your real, vulnerable, and imperfect self, and still have the other person choose to stay. Pat and Tiffany's bond grows not because they become flawless, but because they create this space for each other. At its core, this film isn't telling a fairy tale story of healing, it's about acceptance. Accepting the imperfections in life, in ourselves, and in the things we cannot change. Modern society puts immense pressure on us to always be positive, to be filled with sunshine and good vibes. making it seem like admitting our struggles and vulnerabilities is tantamount to failure. But this movie boldly declares that struggles aren't failures, vulnerabilities aren't weaknesses, and it's okay to be messy sometimes. It doesn't mean you're unworthy of love or happiness. One detail I particularly love is the film's choice not to give us a conventional happy ending. Pat and Tiffany find each other, but there's no fancy house, no carefree life, and no clear resolution for their future. But does that even matter? What matters is the present, their choice at this moment to be together, to trust each other, and to give it a shot. And that's enough. Perhaps you're in a low point in your life right now, feeling like everything is spinning out of control and the future looks bleak. But keep in mind, there is always a silver lining. It may not be the kind of happiness you originally hoped for or a perfect outcome, but it will show itself in ways and places you least expect. In the meantime, the best thing you can do is keep going, keep trying, and keep believing, just like Pat and Tiffany. If you enjoyed today's episode, feel free to like and subscribe. Also, I'd love for you to share your stories in the comments below, how you made it through a tough time or what helped you keep believing in hope. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. That's all for today's episode. Wherever and whenever you're listening, I wish you good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Delusion, and we'll see you next time.